Hi, I'm Dennise.
And I'm Tom.
And welcome to our podcast, Because We've Been in Your Shoes.
We created our podcast for you, our nonprofit colleagues. As nonprofit professionals with over 50 years of experience combined, we've led nonprofit hospitals, university programs, campaigns that have transformed cities, communities, and campuses. We're from Chicago and Detroit, and now we're in the Pacific Northwest. Our work has taken us across the country from the Midwest to Seattle, to Portland, California, and nationally. We've seen it, lived it, and have learned from it.
We've all been through a lot as nonprofit professionals, and we hear you, we see you, and we understand. We know you too are used to wearing many hats. It can be exhausting, but we come together with the shared mission to transform the world. Because We've Been in Your Shoes is a podcast for you, us, and our entire nonprofit community, sharing and learning from one another so we can continue to innovate and unleash capacity for good. We'll hear from colleagues and peers, discuss emerging issues in the sector, and provide you with key takeaways and useful tips to support you in all you do. We believe that people and philanthropy equal possibilities. Join us on the Because We've Been in Your Shoes podcast with new topics and special guests. Thank you for joining us. And here's where we left off. But I think I want to ask this question. Did you find this idea creator in you, this entrepreneurial thinking? Do you think 20 years ago you would have, do you think your experience then brought you into being able to take risks, pose these ideas, and then follow through?
Yes. As you know, as a nonprofit professional, we're bootstrapping all the time.
Yes.
Right? All the time. And if you're not being innovative or trying to be innovative in practice, it might not be, like I said, a culture that celebrates and welcomes that, but it's inherent in being in nonprofit work. You got to figure out to do more with less.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
we know it's scrappy, but you can't look scrappy.
Right. So you have to up your game, but you have to do it in a way with very limited resources to do it. And so going through that all of the time, like I've never worked for a nonprofit that had a huge marketing budget. Have you?
No. No.
Right?
We often ask the marketing companies to pro bono all of their graphic design and services. So yeah.
So, but then you have to get innovative and clever on what tools are available. Oh, social media. So in the past, I was all over the LinkedIn. I call it the LinkedIn. I'm sorry, that's so goofy. LinkedIn, but I call it the LinkedIn for many, many years. Now, LinkedIn used to be the job seekers space, right?
Yeah.
But it's so much more than that now.
Oh, it's a vital tool.
And back then, I used it as a space to elevate awareness about the nonprofit I was working at. So you never know. Is a foundation trustees in the LinkedIn space? You never know. And then sharing the successes, the impact, the generosity of others supporting programming got us in front of other corporate sponsors and definitely elevated us, I believe, in front of foundations in order to increase grant support and donors.
Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn, if you're hearing, you've got two experienced nonprofit leaders that you could also tap into, because there's something about LinkedIn. I know they've tried to tap into some of that nonprofit community online. I think if they lean into engaging people like you and I think we can help grow some of that, because LinkedIn has been vital for me in building foundation relationships, major and principal gift strategies for prospect researchers. It's a wonderful tool on many levels. And it's also has the potential for being really great space to recruit board members and really creating social innovation and impact funding, because there are so many investors and impact funds that are utilizing LinkedIn, but the two worlds aren't connected yet. And so if there's a way, they
got to show up.
Yeah.
They got to show up. Okay. Yeah. It's really not rocket science.
It's not.
Really, If
Yeah.
you have a profile, whenever you meet someone, you connect to them, demonstrate your thought leadership, okay? You
Yeah.
can do that a number of ways, even, with your own original organic, if you will, native content. But what a great way to showcase and amplify other thought leaders by saying, "Oh, I just met this
Yeah.
consultant who shared this great, brilliant idea to deal with XYZ," and of course, attribution, and showcasing their idea to your community. It's really not difficult to do. And, people are like, "Oh, I hate social media." Okay, it's not going anywhere. And I'm not saying to turn over your life to social media. But if you are strategic on how you use it, and my favorite is LinkedIn because it's all relationship based, well, all social media is that you can build relationships and
Yeah.
connect, help others, and share resources. And that is only going to come back in tenfold to you because you're demonstrating you are community minded. Look at all this community minded effort that you're putting into this space, showcasing others.
Other than LinkedIn, what are, just to share with our audience, like, what are some of the other social media platforms? I mean, I'm not on TikTok.
Not yet.
But it's over. Well, I don't know. I mean, tell me and tell, other audience members. It confuses
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
It's another thing that I'm like, oh my God, how do I manage that? I don't like myself on video.
Right.
And then women, I think in particular, and I've shared this with you, and we'll share a little bit about how you and I both know each other. But women oftentimes, even with significant experience and know-how, also get faced with imposter syndrome that hold
Mm.
us back. And
Mhm.
so while we might be content experts, we oftentimes don't demonstrate and put that on show. So yeah, share a little bit about what your favorite platforms are and how women are not showing up or
I'm
yeah.
going to start with this disclaimer. Whatever I say is like over and gone within the 10 minutes after I say it because that's how social media is. So the thing with social media, it keeps changing. But the bottom line is this. Have fun.
Have fun.
Keep the social in your media because if you're having fun, you're being genuine. You're being authentic.
That was a great advice.
So that's what I do, and that's what I recommend to my clients. There's formulas and there's these strategies to try to beat the algorithm, and I pay attention to those things. But really, when it comes down to it, if I'm pushing to stay ahead of the current trend, then that's not who I am. I just like to be in the moment and have fun and keep it real.
I love that. I mean, so much of I think what intimidates people about social media is perfectionism. I deal with that. It's like, is it the perfect looking image? Is it going to get the most likes? And if people don't like it, does it mean that I've failed and I've put out something that is either, not in tune, not relevant? Why are people not responding? And so I think that can intimidate, whether you're building your own personal brand as a solopreneur and a woman, or you're doing it for your nonprofit. I think oftentimes you kind of pause of being and get caught up in being, what's that famous saying? Don't let perfectionism get in the way of your innovation. And you can't innovate if you're not putting it out there either.
You got to take chances and be a bit of a risk taker. And yes, women have often struggles of a such public demonstration of
Yeah.
that, of who we are. And here's an analogy, I guess, of sorts. Many, many years ago, I used to work at a public access center, and I had the opportunity to launch a cable television show showcasing the local arts and culture in the Portland metro area. And I remember watching my first show on the television, and immediately I was hypercritical. Oh, wow, look at my belly roll. I should sit like that, da 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 da.
Yeah.
And I remember then immediately saying to myself, okay, you got a choice here, girl. Either you stop doing the show or you need to stop being hypercritical.
Yeah.
What is more important here? You worrying about the belly roll, or you doing what you're passionate about in showcasing the arts and culture in the area?
Yeah.
I chose to do the
I'm
show.
glad, because passion is what makes you happy. And the other things are just so much, we put also so much self criticism and doubt
Mhm.
that I think, and environments where women are working also don't always support that as well. I mean, oftentimes when you're a nonprofit leader, let's say you're new in a particular organization, and oftentimes you'll have a board chair that is a man. And still, a lot of nonprofit boards oftentimes will have more men serving, and they're also usually your biggest donors still. I mean, I know that's changing a little bit, but oftentimes in the experience that I've had, even walking into those spaces, you know, you get self-conscious. You question, like, well, am I being too much of who I am in presenting? My passion is to do this work, but yet I feel like I'm being criticized. And then you kind of also create a imbalance of the dynamic you're walking in to, whatever that environment is, whether it's on TV or, and then you think of all the different possible things that you're excluding yourself from because you're stuck in trying to be perfect. You're stuck in trying to fit a mold of something. And thankfully you didn't walk away from doing that show.
Yes, I think, and listen, I'm going to be 58 years old next month. So
I would
it's,
never know.
but it's,
Denise.
a journey, right? Through my process of living life. And, talking to me at 30 would have been an entirely different conversation than me almost 30 years later. But, and it's easy for me to say the following, but you still have to say it out loud. And that is, just stop it. Okay.
Stop it.
Just
Yes.
stop it.
Yeah.
And
Let's say that often. Stop it.
just stop it. Okay. And I also, personally, when I'm struggling with my own questionable narrative in my head, or feeling insecure, or whatever I'm trying to navigate, I have found that, one, I'm aware that's happening. Two, I don't want it to continue to happen. So three, what am I going to do to stop it? And that's coming up with some disruptor. So I come up with some other talk, like I know when it's happening, and I will do something or say something to myself that jars me into that awareness, like, okay, knock it the heck off, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm just not going to diminish myself anymore,
I like it. Let's
right?
let's not do
And
that.
it's easy. Like I said, it's easy for me to say this
Yeah.
now because I went through the pain and the growth and the
Hmm.
experience and the learning, which is lifelong. But it is time to make the conscious choice. I was just talking to a colleague earlier today, and she's really struggling. She's got some medical stuff that causes some challenges, and some other things that she keeps messing yourself up and self-sabotaging and things of that nature. And I was talking about my own habits of self-sabotage.
Yeah.
But the first thing they say is becoming aware of it is the first step in correcting it, right? So
Hmm.
figuring out, oh, this is happening. What do I need to do to stop it from happening and persisting is a practice. It's not like, oh, I know how to do that now and you're done and good to go. No, it's the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk. We're both in the same generation, and I recently, so excited. I haven't really done much with sharing and announcing it, but I was recognized as top 40 over 40
Yay!
nonprofit leaders. So amazed that first thing, it was kind of funny when my friend, I was like, oh my God, I saw my picture on there and everything. And the first thing my response was to my friend, I was like, how did they know I was over 40? And she, and it's interesting. I want to talk a little bit about age. I'm finding that, and
Mm.
I think I posted it on my LinkedIn, I find that I'm just starting to be bold, to be innovative, and okay to say, I've got entrepreneurial thinking. I am an ideator, but I have follow through and execution. And I also have experience to know, um, what I'm doing. And, but it's interesting. I feel in my late 40s that I am just scratching the surface of what more I can bring and the potential I can bring as an individual and as a woman. Um, but I'm
Mhm.
also faced with the reality that I come across, even whether it's a consulting opportunity or a permanent position, I still lose opportunities as the finalist to men. I know because I look them up and I find out who else got the position. And oftentimes, maybe 15 years younger than me. And I've been also learning and curious
Yeah.
to hear what you're seeing, but there is reports and studies out there, and even women who are hiring, we've got our own biases. Men tend to be hired on potential, and women, as we all know, may have be over qualified applying for a position that they were doing 20 years ago, and they still have to demonstrate their knowledge and experience,
Mm.
and that still
Mm.
doesn't get them there. What do you say to that? I mean, that's something I'm
I
sure.
appreciate you sharing that context because I didn't have that kind of reference, that framework to that situation. But oh, that even makes me
I-
madder.
I'll send you the study, and I'll try to put it in the show notes here.
Yeah.
But there is a study that even women who are hiring, and
Yeah.
especially executive women, not all, but we still operate in biases because we're oftentimes very few in a male dominated executive
Mhm.
for profit, mostly also in major university uh, nonprofit environments, fundraising development shops that are universities, hospitals, and things like that. They tend to see male candidates with potential. They have the potential to lead. They have the potential to navigate difficult decisions. Oh, we need her to demonstrate her experience. Why did she jump from this job to just this job? Why did she work for a museum and now works at a hospital? Why did she have a break in her career? Oh, she must have had children.
Yes. Drives me batty.
And all of this stuff comes into
Yeah.
writing the female applicant's narrative and
Yeah.
pushing and suppressing that applicant, and then seeing the potential on the other side. It's just heartbreaking. I've been in those situations and hearing that I didn't get it. And then the more that I dig of why and finding out who,
Yeah.
that can, it's demoralizing. And so it's harder to go back into
Yeah.
looking for the next opportunity.
Yeah. I don't have the answer to it. I agree, it's very frustrating. I've been in many situations in my career where it's down to me and the other candidate. And they hire either the man or someone
Yeah.
considerably younger. And what is the answer to that? I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I think the other side of that coin is, for instance, men will apply for a job if they have like 2 out of the 10
That's true.
qualifications. They don't even think about it. Whereas women will not apply unless they have all 10. So it's almost an inverse, if you will, thinking about the internalized as well. We internalize that as well. I've become more brazen as I've aged, all right? And more, F you, if you will. If you don't want to like me, oh, well, I'm moving on. But I have found that, and that's easier for me to say because of the privilege and the blessings that I have in order to have more options than many people. But I remember earlier in my career as a nonprofit feeling utterly powerless in situations, thinking I was powerless and trying to play the game when you have a mentally ill executive director, right? And perpetually protected, toxic, really abusive, those environments exist. And feeling
Mm-hmm.
powerless as to what you do because they've got you by the neck, right? It's your livelihood. But I've learned that if you keep the faith and believe in yourself, we have to go at it harder, okay? But keep believing that you're worth more than what
Yeah.
they might be communicating to you in their actions or dismissive, whatever. I will
Mhm.
say this, one of the reasons why I left Portland is and I'm generalizing, and this is my personal experience. It's at that time, may still be, very youth centric, youth oriented culture.
It
Okay.
it is. It
And
is.
I was finding a woman in my 50s had pretty much limited access, even though I had all this experience.
I would say even women in their 40s. I would say that too.
Yeah, it started in my 40s,
Yes.
and it was unbelievable because I'd always get every job that I applied for and interviewed. And
Exactly. Yeah.
always. And then all of a sudden, blah, 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 blah. But going through menopause, that's another podcast, also adds a layer. Not for this podcast.
I have a neck fan. Actually, I have this neck fan, by the way, that has been
Yeah.
really great because it's silent and you can't
And then
even
it
hear
keeps
it
you
when I have it
cool
on
and
Zoom calls.
refreshed.
Yes.
Oh my God. But I'm having to
Yeah.
also navigate that biological, experience going through all of that. But
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm out of here. All right.
Yeah.
This is not my community anymore. And feeling
Yeah.
returning to the Northeast, I'd have a bit
Yeah.
better time of navigating that age issue.
Yeah.
And I have. And now
Yeah.
there's other variables involved. I'm not, I'm doing my own thing. There's all different kinds of variables,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a culture that I feel more
Yeah.
welcome in.
Yeah. Well, I will share with you, and I've said, I may have said this on a previous podcast, and I really want to stand against this. Being a woman is not a disease. Being someone of older age, north of 40, is not a disease, and having menopause is not a disease. These are not disabilities. Those are actually advantages.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I'm generalizing, but I think a lot of people like put those marks against women. Um, and it's like, if I'm experiencing a certain part of my, youth evolving into a different age bracket, I still am not just even more highly capable, but I'm passionate and driven. And just to go back to the article that I was mentioning, where we as a society hire potential, and we see that more in men than we do in women. It's Frontiers in
Mm.
Psychology. That was the publication and study they did
Mm.
last year, where overlooked leadership potential. And so oftentimes, as you said, they'll look for the 2 qualifiers in a male candidate, where women have to show more than the 10. And oftentimes the study also, I think, revealed
Mhm.
that female candidates will often go through more interviews, ask for writing samples. They'll be asked for different types of
Yes.
references. Male candidates oftentimes will have shorter interview to hire, which is, I was not too long ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, I I kid you not, and it was for, a chief advancement officer position. I had 11 interviews. 11. I actually will never forget it. 11 interviews, and Dennise, I kid you not, 2 of the interviews were health system wide. Do you know what that meant? There was like over 40 people in the entire foundation office on that call.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was only going to manage 6 people, but apparently all 40 had to be on the call. And the candidate that they ended up picking was a man. This 5 years ago, and it was another part of the country. I One of the things that challenged me and bothered me still to this day, and I've mentioned it on a podcast, they never actually called and told me I didn't get the job. I was the finalist. I had to ping them twice, and it was 2 weeks later. They said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We've been negotiating with the other candidate, and they're
Oh
writing
my
up
God.
the final offer as we speak." And I said, "I thought I was a finalist. You talked to my references. I went through all of this." And so I do still have trauma from that experience. And yes, and the individual that they hired not only had less experience than I did, because I looked up his profile, was much younger and came from a for profit sales position,
Oh, that,
was VP of the
yeah.
sales and going into healthcare principal giving. Oh, that just crushed me. And
Yeah.
so seeing this article and this study, I think just reinforced why also I'm excited talking to you and really, really excited with how you're amplifying other women leaders and the work that you're doing in building out that social enterprise greenhouse and even talking to them about. I think it's brilliant
Mhm.
what you're doing, and more of us, I think, need to us more and more individuals who identify as female and women leaders, we need to support each
And
other.
I think that you answered your own question. Yeah. I mean, when going back to that, it's like, what do we need to do? What can we do to deal with this? And that is use the power that we have and expand it and do what we can to focus our energies on supporting other women. And then it'll grow.
Well, thank you. And one of the things we're going to do as we wind down, I definitely want to have you back. I think Tom, who is an amazing co-host, he oftentimes really probes great questions and recognizes as a development leader, as a nonprofit leader, having worked with women in the field, he has seen and supports getting more gender equity, especially in the nonprofit field and the development profession. So would love to have you back and have a great conversation with Tom.
I'd love it. Thank you.
But one of the fun things we've been doing is trying to get to know a little bit about our special guests' backgrounds. And so we're just rolling out this. Music is a very big part of my background. I used to be a DJ too and in radio. And so as a DJ, also not just spinning records, but hosting radio programs, music shows, we want to
Hmm.
talk about music. What inspires you? So share with us
Yeah.
what music, song, a singer, a band that inspires you in this work.
Yeah. 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 So, I embrace music in pretty much every facet of my life to celebrate, to comfort me, but to uplift me. And so when you pose this question, a song immediately came to mind, and it's called "I Can See Clearly Now" by Johnny Nash. Do you know that
Oh,
song? I'm not
yes,
going to sing it,
I can
but
see
"Clearly
clearly
now the
now
rain
the
is gone."
rain is gone. Yeah.
And it's such a song for me of optimism that you're coming through the storm. And because life is full of storms, but you know what? You're going to be able to see clearly. It's going to be okay. And just keep on keeping on because it's all going to be good.
I love that. That is, it's appropriate for the Northwest.
Yeah.
Because it's the rain season's around the corner, and as you probably may not miss some of it, maybe you
I
do.
do miss it.
But when the rain and the clouds go away, the spring renewal here in the Northwest is quite beautiful.
Mhm.
So thanks for picking that for our Northwest
You
listeners.
bet.
Well, you still have your foothold here. I know that you're always welcome back in Portland. Obviously, you have created deep roots in the
Mhm.
nonprofit community here, and so many nonprofits have benefited from your
Thank you.
expertise here and will continue to because you are available
Yes,
as a
yes.
consultant, not just for grant writing, but communications. And then a growing community of women entrepreneurs and
Yeah.
solopreneurs should definitely reach out to you. And I look forward to exploring more about your podcast. And so, are there any things that you'd like to make plugs or updates? You shared some great
Yes.
potentials that, yeah, share with us and our audience.
Yes, I do. So I started this thing called the Digi Dialogue Roundtable session,
What is that?
and it's called the Digi Dialogue Roundtable session.
Oh, yet
And
another creative thing. What is this
yes,
about?
so every month, I believe third Thursday of the month, and you can just go to my website, ctdcreative.co, and click on the group learning button. But I bring an expert from the digital space into the Zoom room and I interview that person about their expertise of that particular area. So this month, I had Joanne Holmes come in and talk about Web 3.0 and what it means for small businesses and how we can start leveraging that and being part of that conversation. Great conversation. And then the attendees get to ask questions of the guest. And then there's also a networking component. So I love, as I mentioned, connecting people, convening people, sharing information and resources. So I created this free resource, and you do have to pre-register. So if you do go to my website, I do have the sessions listed on that page
Okay.
Throughout the end of the year. And it's really a great opportunity to learn about specific digital strategies and also meet some amazing people.
We'll make sure to add those to our notes
Okay.
when we post this podcast. You are not just a wealth of information, but because we've been in your shoes, you know how to support other women leaders and nonprofits. So thank you so much for joining us, and we definitely want to have you back.
Thank you, Dennise. This was great fun. Thank you.
Thank you, and take care. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Because We've Been in Your Shoes.
Join us next time as we share, advocate, and highlight experiences and ideals from nonprofit colleagues, leaders, and champions.
Subscribe to Because We've Been in Your Shoes podcast and be the first to hear our new episodes introducing new topics and guest speakers. Remember, nonprofit friends, you're not alone because we've been in your shoes.